Hi, my name's Liam. This is Outpost 18 and this is Darklight Memento Mori, and today we're going to be talking about the Revenant, which is a bit of a fan favourite for this particular game. Possibly because it's an assassin class, everyone likes an assassin, and it's also got the old Plague Doctor mask going on as well, so you've got the whole beak thing going on in the miniature, and the artwork's really cool for it as well. That said, it's probably one of the harder, maybe hardest characters to play in this particular game. If you're looking to play this solo, then my advice would probably be to forget it. You've been for a hell of a rough ride. This is really a character that you field in a party, and it won't come good for at least a few levels either, so you have to carry it for a little bit. However, we're going to go through it so you can kind of see the pros and cons. So first of all, its melee and ranged attacks are both 2 hitting on 4+, so they are fantastic. It's one of the best characters in the game. 2 melee attacks, 2 ranged attacks hitting on 4+ is really good. That has a belt size of 3 as well, which is decent. The initiative is incredible, it's 8. Movement is average, which is 4, and the sanity is not too bad with 6. The health, however, is pretty poor for someone who's going to be on the front lines attacking a lot. At 12 is kind of puts you down there with the Necromancer and the Blood Witch. The Necromancer can tank to a pretty good extent actually. The Revenant less so, and we'll get into that later. So it's a bit of a glass cannon, this one. Can dish out a whole truckload of damage, and you need to do that in order to keep it alive, which we're going to discuss, but its base health is not brilliant. It also starts off with a shiv, which is a pretty poor starting item. You'll probably want to get rid of that as soon as possible. It works by doing more damage the more you hit with it. And each time you can hit, you can try and do more hits, but the base damage output is so low that you have to stab people quite a lot with it to actually do anything of note. So that's not great, so I suggest you drop that weapon as soon as possible and just pick something else up, whatever it is, even if it's a broken sword or something, just use that. His strength, or her strength, its strength, because it's dead, is 3. Which is okay. Perception is 4, that's very good. Mind is 3, you'll probably not be using mind, to be fair. Charisma is pretty terrible at 1, but if you're in a party, then there are other characters who will pick up the slack in that department. The agility is very good at 5, and endurance is 3, which is not bad. So the stats are okay, aside from charisma and health. Neither of those are particularly good. Looking at the cards, I'm going to start with item cards that you'll probably want to pick up as soon as you can. So one of them, let me just check, is a Stiletto, which is 1d6 plus 2 damage, and you get a +1 melee attacks. That, and we're going to talk about these things later on, but you can get these things in town for 90 gold crowns or something like that. They're not particularly expensive, so I would get yourself a pair of those. 2 of them for dual wielding very quickly. And the other thing you probably want to do is look at getting a wrist crossbow. Does mean you're going to drop some armour or evasion points, but you're going to be putting out even more attacks, and you'll need those as we see later. The primary reason is because the Revenant's main ability is called Blood Wounds, and essentially when you take damage or when you take wounds, you take blood wounds. And you keep count of these, and the idea is in your subsequent phase, for every 2 wounds you cause, you get to remove a blood wound. For all the blood wounds that you haven't removed by the end of your subsequent phase, they all become actual wounds. So you're going to take a lot of hits because he's quite weak, and then the idea is you put out a huge amount of wounds yourself in order to mitigate the wounds that you would have taken. If you can't mitigate them, you will take those wounds, and then you'll be in trouble. He does heal 1 wound a turn, which sounds good, But the reality is that in Darklight you're either just wandering around exploring and it's quite quiet, or you're facing waves and waves and waves of monsters, and when that happens, healing one wound a turn is no good. And this guy can't benefit from the Cursed Heart either, which is pretty savage, so he's not going to get any healing from that. So you have to be a bit careful with him. You have to put out colossal amounts of damage in order to mitigate the wounds you would take, to try and stop taking them, essentially. And to do that, you're going to need to use the right skills and the right weapons. So you probably want to be dual wielding with stilettos or something like that. And you can also go smith the stilettos and use like Darklight or gold to get an extra d6 damage on each one versus demons. I think it's Darklight and gold crowns as well. So that 1d6 plus 2 is it, will then become 2d6 plus 2 versus demons, and most of the monsters in the dungeon are demons. If you can't put out 2d6 damage, I've said it before, then you're not going to get very far in the campaign, so that's a bit of a must. On to the skills, let's put those items aside. So stealth, there's a whole load of text on this one, but basically you can hide yourself if you're not in line of sight or in combat, and when you're hidden or in stealth, you can't be seen by monsters, and you can't be threatened. It's great because when you come out of stealth you get some attacking buffs, so you get +2 to damage, and the first attack when exiting stealth will never miss. So that's excellent. It's a really good skill. It means that you can get yourself into position and then basically come out of stealth and hopefully kind of land that savage killing blow. And there are lots of skills which build upon this, which we'll see in a bit. It's tempting to pop out of stealth quite early on, but we've found, having played this character for a while now, that you're probably better off waiting for the monsters to come towards you and let them kind of wrap around you, and then in maybe the second round of combat then bring the Revenant out of stealth, because then you can make sure that you bring him out in an optimal position. This character does not like being surrounded, so if you come out of stealth too early and you get swamped by monsters, you can go down quite quickly, and then it can take ages to get the character back up because you can't use the Accursed Heart to heal it. So that's not particularly useful. I'm not even sure you can use bandages either, but I'd need to check that. You cannot be healed or resurrected by the Accursed Heart. Healing Consumer's Balls will not work on you, so bandages aren't going to work either. So if you go down, you're down for a while, and that's a problem for the rest of the party as well. And also if you're in solo play, that's a problem because you're just going to keep rolling ones for darkness and more monsters are going to appear, etc. So stealth is great, worth getting that one. I think it's level 1. Ambidextrous, you can get level 2. You no longer suffer the -1 to hit penalty when dual wielding. That's excellent, and that's going to work really well with your stilettos, so definitely worth getting those two quickly. Also at level 2 you get backstab, so if you perform a melee attack on any character who is not targeting you, you get +1 to hit, so you're then hitting on a 3, and +2 damage. So when you come out of stealth, you're then going to be hitting on, you're going to get like a +4 damage bonus, which is excellent. So you can do big damage once you do come out of the shadows. So they're great. This one is excellent, Assassination, level 3. So whilst in stealth, your first attack will automatically cause a critical hit. So you're coming out of stealth, you've got like a +4 strength buff, you're then doing a crit hit, you're going to do nasty amounts of damage, plus you're dual wielding as well, so you get the damage increase from that. So you will nail whatever it is you choose to attack when coming out of stealth, which is really good. 1,000 Stabs, this is a level 5 skill, but it's very good. So if at the start of your phase you have 2 weapons equipped, each with keyword small, which the stilettos have, you'll retain any extra attacks they grant when using dual wield, because normally you'd lose that. So those +1 attacks that the stilettos give you, you'll retain those. So then your basic 2 melee attacks is going to go to 4. So you've got 4 melee attacks. You're going to be crit hitting when you come out of stealth. You're going to be piling on +4 strength, and it's all going to be rather hideous. So 1,000 stabs is excellent, and you need to do this level of damage with this character when you come out of stealth, because you don't want to be surrounded. That's the last thing you want, so you've got to take down targets quickly. And we've got the Warden's Hand. If you attack a character from stealth and you manage to kill it, you will remain in stealth, which is bloody amazing when you can combine that with the crit hit coming out of stealth, and you could maybe work it so that you could just constantly stay in stealth and just keep stabbing from the shadows. So those skills there, was it 5 skills? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sorry, 6 skills. They're excellent, they're really good, and I would encourage you to go for those ones if you don't really know what you're doing with this character. There may well be better build options, but that's a really nice way to go. We've then got there's some other skills here which I'll rattle through, which are okay. Incidentally, a really good way of getting your blood wounds down by inflicting wounds is to use oil flasks. If you can't find those, that's fine, just go to the church and you can buy blessed water, which are kind of similar. They've got a less area of effect, but they do wounds as opposed to damage, which the oil flasks do. So the blessed waters are really good as well, and if you've taken a whole truckload of blood wounds, and we've had games where the Revenant has taken like 20 incurred 20 blood wounds or something, sometimes more. That's the time that you then chuck out like a blessed water, you do a whole load of wounds, and then you start to mitigate the blood wounds that you've accrued in the previous turn. Maybe you can get rid of them so that they don't actually transfer into actual wounds. Maybe you end up taking a couple of actual wounds, and then through your own natural ability to heal, they then just fade away. So that's a good way of saving this guy, frankly. Make sure you've got some bombs with you, for want of a better word, because you will need them at certain points in the battle or in the dungeon runs. So we've got some miscellaneous skills here. These ones are okay, however I would suggest focusing on the 6 we've already discussed. So Gift of Blood, the undead special rule will now recover 2 wounds instead of 1 during a melee attack. So instead of I mean, actually that is really good actually, because it means that you can get those blood wounds down a lot quicker. I think if I'm reading that right, so the undead special rule will now recover 2 blood wounds for every 2 wounds you cause during melee attack. Yeah, so that's pretty good. So as like a 7th skill, that's definitely worth investing in. That's a nice one, but you'll probably want to go for the others first, because with this character, a good defense is a good offense, and he can have an exceptionally good offense. But it does take him a while to get there, so you might find yourself being carried by the other members of the team for the first few levels or so. These other ones though are less interesting. So you've got Shadow Dancer, which is a level 2 skill, so you can enter stealth even when in combat, so long as no other monster has you in their line of sight. Well, whilst that is nice, the chances of a monster not having line of sight on you during a combat is very slim. You basically have to probably tumble away from the action, run around a corner or something, and then you're abandoning your teammates. It's then going to be harder for them because you're not contributing, and the combats go on longer, and you can end up rolling more Darkness Rolls of 1 and getting additional waves on top of the one you're already fighting. So maybe if you're playing solo play, that could be useful, but certainly playing in a group I wouldn't bother. That said, it does work in tandem, I think, with Quick Step, which is level 3 skill. So by spending a stamina point at the start of your movement phase, you may move a number of extra squares, equal to your current agility. So his agility is quite high at 5. Cannot be done if wearing heavy armour, so that's a bit of a pain. But it does mean that you can run quite quickly, maybe get around those corners and then maybe use Shadow Dancer to go back into stealth. So for solo play, maybe has a purpose, but certainly in group play, I wouldn't be using those. I'd just be piling out damage, helping out the teammates, clear levels quickly, so you take less return damage. But Power of the Mind, your Will of the Dead will now heal 2 wounds. So he heals 1 wound a turn anyway, that would then change it to 2. It's okay, but with Darklight you kind of need big lumps of healing. You don't tend to lose wounds in dribs and drabs, you tend to get sucker punched and lose a truckload of wounds and need them back quite quickly. And you can't do that with this character because it can't benefit from the Cursed Heart or bandages. So unless you've got like an exorcist knocking around, sprinkling healing on everyone, you're going to be in trouble. So that's why I think you need to keep the offense going so that you can use his blood wounds rule to mitigate the amount of wounds it's going to take when those blood wounds convert into actual wounds. So be aggressive with this one. That's okay, healing 2 a turn, but those other skills over there I think are a lot better and they make you more aggressive. So Snare Trap, during the movement phase of a monster, you can play this off turn, you may spend 1 stamina to trap them and end their movement. This skill has a range of 3 squares. For large monsters it needs 3 stamina, so that's huge. I mean, that is useful. If you're playing solo, then maybe Quick Step, Shadow Dancer and Snare Trap are useful. And you kind of try to avoid the enemy and hide again. But in group play, I just don't think there's a use for it. And there are plenty of other characters like the Blood Witch or the Necromancer can pick up manipulation and keep monsters away by moving them backwards. The Exorcist has, I can't remember what it's called now, but it's got a miracle which will basically keep monsters at bay as well, fix them in their place. So solo play maybe, group play I don't think there's a need for that. Those other skills over there are much better. Power of the Mind. Did we go through this one already? I think we did. Yeah, we'll heal 2 wounds. So sorry, that's what we're just talking about. So yeah, that's okay. But again, these other skills are better. And then we get on to a load of skills which I don't really think have a place. Unless maybe solo play, like Pestilence. At the start of your turn you may spend 1 stamina. Again, it's spending stamina and you need the stamina to evade and pile on your evasion to help defend yourself, or you need it to put it towards tumbling to avoid those killer blows. So these skills we've been talking about where you're sacrificing stamina all the time are not particularly useful. So at the start of the turn you may spend 1 stamina. If you do, every character within your map tile becomes poisoned. Poison is great, very good, but you do find that the demons in this game have quite high endurance, so there's a good chance that they're going to shrug off your poison quite rapidly. Also it says characters there, so I don't know if that affects your fellow Accursed, in which case it's kind of promoting you running off on your own, doing your own thing. So maybe in solo play it's okay, but if you're in a group you probably need to be contributing to the group to help clear the levels quicker. Then we got Will of the Dead. At any point during the turn, again you may spend stamina to recover a wound. Spending a stamina to recover 1 wound is such a poor trade-off. I mean, stamina is crucial in this game if you want to live, and just using that a point of stamina, valuable stamina, just to get a wound back, I don't think it is worth it. Then we've got Mummified. You can no longer be poisoned, which is good. However, you will suffer an additional 2 wounds when receiving fire damage, and that's horrific because fire damage is bad enough as it is, especially when you get ignited. So that's going to make encountering things like the Scorn Shaman particularly nasty, and there are just better skills, frankly. I mean, yes, being immune to poison is great. However, those 6-7 cards over there are far better. Curse of Immortality. When you resurrect, you may roll 1d6 instead of 2d6. Now, on the surface of it, that sounds quite good. You can get back up real quick. However, in my mind, it's pointless getting up in Darklight if you've only got a couple of wounds, because you'll just go back down again. And every time you get back up, you incur an injury, and some of them can be horrific. Some can even kill you permanently, I think. And when you suffer 3 injuries, you're permanently dead anyway. So getting back up off the floor quickly, I don't think is useful. Again, maybe in solo play, if you want to get up and just run away and hide, it might have a purpose. But in a group, you may as well stay down and let the others defend you, because getting back up only to be knocked back down again is not a great idea in my opinion. Obviously all of this is my opinion, but having played the game quite a lot, you've got a reasonable amount of experience with this game now, and so you tend to know what's going to work and what probably won't work. Silent Killer. You are now able to gain line of sight to characters in map tiles unlit by light sources. You also gain +1 to hit to all attacks when standing in an unlit map. And that just promotes you running off on your own when you're playing as a group. And that, to me, just seems a little daft, because you need to work together as a team. You're not going to be able to go it alone, really, not with this character. It's going to get into trouble real fast. So I don't think that's beneficial to the group or to the individual. Again, just my personal thoughts. And then you've got Darkness Stalker. At the end of your turn, if there is no light produced by any means within your map tile, recover 1 wound. Again, that's just promoting running off into the abyss on your own. I don't think there's any point in taking those 2. The others may be Pestilence, Will of the Dead, was it? Curse of Immortality. If you're playing on your own, maybe, but certainly as a group, wouldn't use those. Never use these. I'd recommend sticking with those 7 over there. Grapple is an interesting one. Again, a truckload of rules like Stealth, but essentially you can grapple people and then deal. What does it say? During your next turn, deal 1 melee attack against the grappled monster with +1 to hit and +2 damage. It's not a big thing because you're picking up buffs all over the place anyway, so there are much better skills than grapple. And Bloody Determination builds on top of grappling, so while grappling a monster, you may deal your full number of melee attacks before returning a miniature to the board. I'm not going to go into too much detail on these. They're okay, but they're nowhere near as good as those 7 skills over there. So again, I just don't think these have much of a place really, so I'm going to put them in this kind of pointless pile. So if I were you, if you're playing this character in a group, just remember it's a glass cannon. You need to dish out a huge amount of damage in order to mitigate the blood wounds, and if you don't mitigate those blood wounds, they're going to turn into actual wounds, and then you're going to be very slow to recover because you're only getting 1, maybe 2 back a turn, and you can't benefit from many forms of healing, and that's going to cause a problem. So your best form of defense is having a supremely good offense, which you can have with this character. You can dual wield, get all those benefits. You can pump out like 4, maybe 5 attacks as you level up. Then you've got the wrist crossbow attacks and cross on top of that. And I think the wrist crossbow can be used even when adjacent to enemies, so that's excellent. So it's like having additional close combat attacks, and you could probably smith that as well to get more damage on it. Again with Demonite shards, gold. Gold's quite Demonite shards you can find relatively easily. Finding gold is a lot trickier. So if you find gold, hang on to it because you need gold, Demonite, and something like a few £100 to give yourself a smithed item which does an extra d6 versus demons, but it is gold dust, it's definitely worth having. So that's my assessment of the Revenant. Never leave home without a couple of blessed waters, so you can get rid of a load of blood wounds when you really need to. Take those, they're kind of essential for this character really. Get some stilettos, get a wrist crossbow. Those 7 skills over there are really good. If you go down that route, it's a pretty decent character, but it is a slow build and it's not really going to get going until probably realistically level 4, 3 if you're lucky. So the other Accursed that you're playing with probably need to understand that it is a slow burn with this one, but when it does come good, it is good, but it's hard to get there. Solo play, that's your chances of success are probably like rolling a 6 on the d6, so they're not an easy character to play solo. I wouldn't advise doing that at all. And also don't play this character if you've not played the game before, you're going to be in for a rough ride otherwise. Just take something like the Outcast or something, which is point, click and you're dead. That's a really good character to start off with. Or maybe something like the Black Knight or something, so they're a bit easier to use. So that's my assessment of the Revenant. Hope you've enjoyed it and we'll do some more soon.